I'm going to try and go through this pretty quickly. It's a big crowd, so thank you all for staying here. We'll try and keep it entertaining. And if you can, hold your questions until the end. But if you really have a question, oh my God, I have a question, please ask a question. Just don't do it just yet. So, who am I? Our friend Julian did a pretty good job. I've done a handful of things in my life. I've done some interesting stuff. We already talked about that, but we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about advertising that learns. And so I do want to talk about a brief history of advertising that learns, and then I want to talk to you about some really specific examples about it. So it wouldn't be a presentation of mine unless I included my children. These are my 3 kids. And they've started to learn about advertising too. So this past summer, they were working on variable pricing. So you'll see here that you've got lemonade, but if I could get a slice of fruit there, I get lemonade for 35 cents. Ooh, pink lemonade with a slice of fruit, 45 cents. So they're already learning about advertising and pricing and how to make their profit margin effective in the summer so they can buy toys. So what are we talking about here? What I talk to them about a lot is I say once upon a time. So once upon a time, in the beginning, one person would sell to another. And then advertising had to sell to more people at once. In ancient Rome, the praeco, who was also known as the town crier, became the world's first broadcaster. And selling at scale began when a guy who looked something like that began yelling with like what Petronius wrote in AD 60. And what he said was, don't forget, there's a big gladiator show coming the day after tomorrow. Not the same old fighters either. They got a fresh shipment in, not a slave in the batch, and there's even a woman who fights from a chariot. This is how advertising worked way back then. And next, so what happened next? Next, advertising had to learn how to sell weird new products, like a hot drink made from frickin' beans. Did you know, by the way, that coffee can cure dropsy, gout, and scurvy? So if you're wondering about that, if you're not feeling very well, coffee is a solution, according to advertising. In fact, this is the first known ad anywhere. It was done in 1658 for the first ad for coffee. And of course, now we have Starbucks with Wi-Fi and expensive lattes. But of course, things like soap and coffee are commodities, right? So advertising had to learn a new trick. And so somebody took a bath in Cincinnati and discovered something amazing. Here's what they found. Ooh, soap floats. And the first brand budget for P&G in 1882 was a shocking $11,000. But advertising wanted to learn more. And in fact, in just 2 decades, another company called You Need a Biscuit launched the first ever $1 million ad campaign. But advertising wanted to learn more. So in 1960, this gentleman, Stanley Resor, at J. Walter Thompson, created a market research department to ask what people need, want, and believe. And then David Ogilvy stuck a pipe in his mouth and hopped in a time machine, and he clubbed Claude Hopkins over the head and stole all of his good ideas about how to write good advertising. This is for Schlitz. Schlitz beer will, of course, cure biliousness. So all of advertising pretty much up until the 20th century, maybe even the 21st, hey, we can cure everything for you. And so beer cures that. And then what he did is he brought them back to the future. But then, of course, everybody said, oh, great, now we have all these rules. We have rules about copy. We have rules about design. Bill Bernbach said, you know what? He grabbed a blowtorch and he said, screw the rules, because decisions are actually made emotionally. And advertising, I think, is lovable. Who here, show of hands, who here has ever seen this ad? Okay, pretty much everybody in the room. And that's pretty cool. It's for Volkswagen. We all recognize that it's iconic. But here's what Bill Bernbach said about advertising. He said 3 things. Number 1, advertising is fundamentally persuasion, and persuasion happens to be not a science, but an art. So what's the AI guy up here talking about? We'll get to that. So number 2, he said properly practiced creativity can make the work of 1 ad do the work of 10. But a really important thing he said was that if your advertising goes unnoticed, everything else is academic. And so neuroscience, specifically the science of emotion, backs this up. Except, I'm not showing you ads, I'm showing you pictures of tasty ice cream. And so Antonio Damasio, I'm not expecting everybody to know this. Anybody know who Antonio Damasio is? Cool, a couple of hands go up, nice. So Antonio Damasio, neuroscientist, what did he do? He studied people who had received brain injuries, and they had one specific effect. The damage to the part of the brain where emotions are generated. And in all other respects, they seem normal. They just lost their ability to feel emotions. Maybe this is like an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend of yours. Maybe this resonates with some of you. But the interesting thing he found is that their ability to make decisions were seriously impaired. They could logically describe what they should be doing. And in practice, they found it very difficult to make decisions about where to live, what to eat, et cetera. And so in particular, decisions have pros and cons to each side, right? Should I come to this advertising session? Should I go back to my office? Should I have a beer? Should I have a wine? Should I have the fish? Should I have the beef? Should I stay for the ad for the ball tonight? Should I do something else with my family? Who knows? But with no rational way to decide, they were unable to make that decision. Oops. There we are. And so the evolution of digital advertising. So I believe, and I would say I, speaking on behalf of Rocket Fuel, we believe that there was a bottleneck until recently, because what we did is we handpicked ads, we handpicked media, we handpicked tactics so that we could connect with people. We hope we could connect with people so that they could have some sort of emotional experience with our advertising, with our brand, with our product. And that sensory response to that message would either be immediate or deferred. And that's a hell of a lot of work. But of course, just like Bill Birnbach said, if your advertising goes unnoticed, everything else is academic. So what do we believe? We think that something cool happened to advertising. It was a quantum leap. Thank you, Scott Bakula, for your time and your service. And what the quantum leap was big data. Suddenly, between the internet and cheap storage, we had a ton, in fact, more data than we'd ever had before. Who here has more data now than they ever had before? Okay, everybody in the room. So, and crazy things, though, start happening when you can combine big data with AI. And I want to show you an example of what some of those things are. But first, quick question. Who here has ever had a recipe passed down from one of their family members? Nice. Who here has ever cooked a meal? Okay, awesome. Then you're all experts at algorithms, because what an algorithm is, at its core, it's a set of instructions designed to achieve a specific outcome. Now, there's a recipe. Same recipe. How many of you have ever tried to fiddle with the recipe, make modifications to it? All right, so that is a form of algorithm that improves. It improves over time. And it improves over time to achieve better outcomes for whomever it is you're cooking for, whether it be yourself, your family, your friends in cooking school. So what I want to show right now, this is a video from Stanford University from 5 years ago. And it's from a toy helicopter teaching itself how to fly some stunts. So let's listen and hear what happened. This is 5 years ago, this research, and then we'll bring this research up to today.
This program is brought to you by Stanford University. Please visit us at stanford.edu.
So what you're seeing today is by far the most difficult aerobatic maneuvers flown by any computer-controlled helicopter.
The goal is always for us to take really hard problems that humans are very good at solving. For instance, Garrett can pick up any helicopter, even ones he's never seen, and go fly amazing aerobatics. So the question for us is always, why can't computers do things like this? So our goal is to build software that can learn to go fly a helicopter the way that a human being can, and that way we don't need so much engineering effort to build control systems like this.
So the basic technology used to develop the helicopter controller was a type of AI algorithm, a type of artificial intelligence algorithm called apprenticeship learning. What the helicopter does is it watches a human pilot fly the helicopter around for a while, and by watching a human pilot learn to fly, it then learns to fly by itself.
So pretty cool. You heard a couple of things in that. One, you heard we're building software that learns. Two, we're watching a human fly and then learning to fly by itself. And then the gentleman who is speaking is Andrew Ng. He is the founder of Coursera, in addition to being AI PhD from Stanford. Hopefully you maybe actually have taken his machine learning course? There's a free machine learning course on Coursera right now that you can take out of Stanford to get a better handle on what the heck all this stuff is about. The next one. So what are we watching here? I want to take a step back to understand the necessary components of an AI system. First, artificial intelligence is a system built based on expert knowledge. And what we talked about before with the recipes, it continues to learn and improve, but it also learns and improves by itself. Here's a great example of how artificial intelligence attempts to duplicate the Mona Lisa to a degree that makes her recognizable. The system learns very quickly how to duplicate certain characteristics of her picture, and the technology has to be powerful enough to make these decisions quickly and to learn along the way. And the cool thing, of course, is that today's computing and software allows for this. So not a bad job at the Mona Lisa there. What do we have here? I'm going to play this forward, and I'll tell you what you're watching. So a pretty quick clip, but the left clip is a segment of a film that a person viewed while in an fMRI machine. And the right clip shows the reconstruction of the segment from brain activity measured in the fMRI. So there's a whole bunch of sampling here. I can give you the exacting details of it later if you really want to ask about what was done here. But this is a computer that is self-reconstructing brainwave activities and brain patterns and trying to render that into something that looks like a visual representation of what's seen on the left. Last year, our friends at 60 Minutes did a nice segment on AI to give you a broader sense of the context of what it is and what it does. Just maybe one minute or so. Let's take a look at this.
The catalyst is something called computer learning, or artificial intelligence, the ability to feed massive amounts of data into supercomputers and program them to teach themselves and improve their performance.
What's the weather like today?
It's how Apple was able to create Siri, the iPhone robot,
Here's the weather for today.
and Google, its self-driving car.
We've been amazed at how rapidly this has been happening.
This is Jeopardy!
IBM's deep QA system that plays Jeopardy. We had a contest here. They played against our best MIT students, the best Harvard students we could put it up against, and not surprisingly, Watson won. And it's being used in real practical applications now on Wall Street and in call centers. Siri, millions of people are using that every day.
The fact that computers can now understand and respond to human speech, the fact that they can actually generate prose of decent quality, they can drive cars, they can win at Jeopardy. We're seeing technology demonstrate skills that it's never, ever done before.
And
So that's pretty interesting. So what are the effects of artificial intelligence around the world? Now, I'm going to show you one more video. And so if we think about the helicopter that we saw at the start that was learning by itself, so 5 years later, here's what the research can do now. This is Rafael de Andrea. He runs in Switzerland. He runs an institute of artificial intelligence. He presented this at TED in September of last year. So let's take a look at what he's doing here.
Suppose that we want this quad to not only hover, but to also balance this pole. With a little bit of practice, it's pretty straightforward for a human being to do this, although we do have the advantage of having 2 feet on the ground and the use of our very versatile hands. It becomes a little bit more difficult when I only have 1 foot on the ground and when I don't use my hands. Notice how this pole has a reflective marker on top, which means that it can be located in the space. You can notice that this quad is making fine adjustments to keep the pole balanced. How do we design the algorithms to do this? We added the mathematical model of the pole to that of the quad. Once we have a model of the combined quad-pole system, we can use control theory to create algorithms for controlling it. Here you see that it's stable, and even if I give it little nudges, it goes back to the nice balanced position. We can also augment the model to include where we want the quad to be in space. Using this pointer, made out of reflective markers, I can point to where I want the quad to be in space, a fixed distance away from me. The key to these acrobatic maneuvers is algorithms, designed with the help of mathematical models and control theory.
Pretty interesting. Yeah, cool. And that's what AI is making inroads into. It's in all facets of life. We're just taking it to a place where it has practical applicability in advertising. So it's no secret, of course, that big data is getting bigger. Our friend Eric Schmidt, of course, from the dawn of civilization until 2003, humankind generated 5 exabytes a day. Now we produce 5 exabytes every 2 days, and the process is accelerating. Everybody raised their hand before. Who has more data? Yes, everybody has more data than they had ever before. And then even McKinsey jumped into the bandwagon a year ago and said, look, big data is a big deal across just about every industry there is. But one of the challenges, the marketer's dilemma, for those of you in the audience who are marketers, everybody here is a marketer to a certain degree, or a salesperson, or someone who's in advertising in some capacity. This is John Kleinberg. John Kleinberg runs the computer science department at Cornell. He's a National Science Foundation winner. And Steve Lohr, who's a technology writer, has been writing about technology for 20 years. He did an interview with John last year in the New York Times, and this is what John said. He said, there is no point in collecting and storing all of this data if the algorithms are not able to find useful patterns and insights in the data. So it does beg the question, if you have all of this data, what are you going to do with it? I heard of this great term the other day that somebody was talking about their CRM database, and they talked about it from the perspective of WARN, which is called write once, read never. So I want you all to be thinking about, from a data perspective, like what data are you capturing, what are you storing, and what are you actually activating, and what could you potentially do? So everything that's happening, making amazing things happen in the chess, in the air, on the road, it's also happening with advertising. These are some of our customers, in fact, that have taken up the chance, taken up the call and said, yeah, advertising that learns can actually change my business. And in fact, for Richard Stern, advertising that learns can change the world, and can change the world and can fight poverty. So what do we contend? We contend that this quantum leap for online advertising, for the industry that I live and breathe in, happened when these liquid pools of data and inventory became available to AI. Before then, it wasn't really possible to deliver advertising that learns. And so if you think about the old model of traditional advertising intelligence, what would you do? You would choose a business outcome, and you'd say, okay, what outcome do I want to improve? I want to increase sales. I want to improve awareness. And then maybe you'd say, okay, I want to decide what data will be relevant to help me make that set of decisions. And then you'd craft a media plan. I too was a media planner. I ran an agency for 7 years. I know what it's like. And then you measure results at the end, and then you design reports, and then you have dashboards to help see what worked. When we think about the application of big data and AI, we think about it a little bit differently. So we're still trying to do the same thing, which is choose the business outcome you want to improve. But then you assemble all possible data, so blowing away this notion of segments, in fact, and then you run algorithms on that data to find a model or series of models that can autonomously learn and improve to create better outcomes. And if you're able to create those better outcomes and operationalize those models across all forms of media that can be purchased in real time, you can then exceed that business outcome. So what we have is a paradigm shift. And now, instead of having advertising that runs and then some kind of post-mortem to figure out what worked and what didn't, we have advertising that learns. And in fact, advertising that learns gets smarter and keeps on learning. And it can self-optimize in real time, just like those crazy quadcopters that we saw before. So quick bathroom break. Number one, you're the first ad for coffee. Anybody remember? Anybody remember who doesn't work at Rockefeller who's seen this presentation before?
1858.
What was that? 1658. Please come see me afterwards for your reward. It will not be a pair of gloves. It will not be a it will not be a snow globe. Second question is the first ad budget for Ivory soap. 11,000. Please come see me afterwards as well. All right, good. We're half the way there through this presentation. I hope you've been entertained so far. So let's talk about questions we're asked. We're typically asked, well, we're asked a lot of questions, but I want to go through 4 questions that we get asked a lot. A lot. The first question is, will AI take my job? You're talking about all this fancy algorithms, this, that, the other. What does that mean for me, humans, self-driving cars? Am I going to be rendered obsolete? The answer is no, and I will try and explain why the answer is no as quickly and coherently as I can. What we believe is that AI reduces big data's complexity and gives marketers power and freedom. So the first thing I want to do is I want to use a small data example that hopefully everybody here will be able to understand. Suppose I were to tell you of a male who was 35 years old, who was single, who lived in New York City, and made $100,000 a year. So male, 35, single, lives in New York City, makes $100,000 a year. These general age, gender, and household income and geographic data points are really the bedrock upon which billions and billions of advertising dollars are spent around the year worldwide. So I want to tell you a similar story about this guy. That same person's on a walk in New York City, and he goes right outside of a bank, and he sees a satchel filled with $100 bills. Probably thousands and thousands of dollars that are in that satchel when all is said and done. On the basis of what you know, what I've just told you about him thus far, how many of you think he would take the money and run? How many of you think he would give the money back? Just on the basis of the information you have so far. Take the money and run. Show of hands, it's okay. This won't be a quiz. All right, how many think the opposite? All right, so it's a fairly diversified group of folks here. So there's something I want to tell you about this guy. What if I tell you that he has another single friend who's a comedian who lives in New York City who's someone he knows? What if I were to tell you that his friend who's the comedian lives next to someone who's very tall, who has very tall hair, and who will burst into his room without warning? What if I were to tell you that the same person has an ex-girlfriend who is now his best friend? And then what would I tell you if all of them decided to have lunch very frequently at a diner on the Upper West Side of New York City? All right, the very same question. Who here thinks he's going to put the money back, take it back to the bank? 0. Who here thinks he's going to take the money and run? Everybody, yes, yes. We've given it away. It is George Costanza. But so let's think about the problem, though, right? Traditional planning and optimization falls short in an era of big data. With millions of potential of these consumer variables available to process today, I believe that AI-powered solutions are in fact necessary to consider the sheer volume of data and possible combinations of these consumer attributes, and to do so in real time. Big data illuminates the possible. And so if we think about this now in terms of the real-world context, like I love talking about George Costanza, Seinfeld, huge thing. Anyway, traditional optimization. So the possible combinations that I've mentioned before, you've got gender, you've got age, and you also have household income. All right, when you combine all of those together, you get 112 combinations. Not the end of the world. You could fit that into Excel. Not terrible. That's cool. But now let's look at geography. There are 43, unlike the United States, where there are 210 DMAs. You're all lucky. You have only 43 DMAs that exist in Canada. So when we combine that with all of our other metrics, then we look at channels. OK, what do we do with display, video, mobile, Facebook, Twitter, what have you? Suddenly, we get 19,264 combinations. And that's just looking at age, gender, household income, geography. Wow, that's a lot of combinations. But guess what, my friends? It gets worse. It only gets worse. In fact, it gets a lot worse. Digital measurement adds a layer of non-mutually exclusive attribute data, such as interaction and interest data. Some of the examples I gave before with Costanza. Okay, where does he eat? What kind of behaviors does he have? How does he move in geography? Who are his friends? What have you? And when you deal with those non-exclusive segments, the number of possible combinations changes, and it goes from a product to an exponent. So in the example I gave just before, where you have 100 possible interest categories, you would have 2 to the 100 possible combinations, or 1.28 times 10 to the 30 combinations. And to put that in some perspective, what does Excel do? Excel tops out at 65,000 rows, 256 columns per worksheet. That's about 16 million possible items in a worksheet. Of course, the number of sheets is limited by the available memory you have, and your machine doesn't have enough memory to load them all into a single Excel document. So to put it all in perspective, it's effectively trying to count every grain of sand on Earth twice. That's a big problem. And there's volume, velocity, variety, and veracity in all of those decisions, all of that data upon which, what do I want to know as a marketer? Why? Tell me something I don't already know about my customer. Tell me how do I improve? So how do you solve this knowledge paradox? Clearly, as the available data to marketers increases, their ability to make decisions plateaus, meaningful decisions. And when you try and put a little extra salt on top of that, what you find is that analyzing new data means ignoring other data or focusing on smaller portions of the data set. And then it actually never becomes clear which data points matter. But the opportunity between actual and ideal, this is the opportunity. This is where AI fits into the bigger picture. This is where reducing big data's complexity fits into the bigger picture. And in fact, whether it's us saying it's 500, here's the thing I don't want you to do. I could have said 5,000 queries. It just looks cool because you had 18.64 analysts there. Whoever it is, if you're talking to Rocket Fuel, if you're talking to some other company who sounds a little bit like Rocket Fuel, don't focus on the number. Oh, I can do 100,000 bids a second. Oh, I can do 600,000. I can do 500,000. The point is that when you apply AI to it, you're giving yourself an opportunity to have 8.64 million analysts per day. The reason why I have 5,000 up there is that through, again, neuroscience tells us that human beings, if they were working nonstop, 24 hours a day, you can make about 5,000 decisions per day. And so advertising has become a big data problem, and artificial intelligence can help solve that problem. And in fact, in addition to being able to process smaller data in real time, AI-powered solutions can also quickly identify which data points matter and which are significant to performance, and eliminate the ones that don't matter. Here's an example. So these are the one piece of the brain, model coefficients for luxury car leads. What does this say? This says that we were trying to, take a sip of water, we were trying to get a luxury car manufacturer more signups for luxury cars. And what we found, start.toshiba.com. How many times does that sit on somebody's media plan? Not too many times, I think. NDTV, NewDelhiTV.com. How many times does that sit on somebody's media plan? Probably not that many times. But what we discovered were that Indian expatriates who were living in the United States were going to these sites, were buying Toshiba computers, and guess what? They were more likely to be great luxury leads for this particular automotive manufacturer. Another example. Here's our good friend Richard Stern, who's the president of World Vision. It's a Christian humanitarian organization that serves close to 100 million people in nearly 100 countries around the world. Its U.S. programs tackle poverty, causes of poverty and injustice to help low-income children, families, and communities in urban and rural areas reach their full potential. So in this particular campaign, how do you attract new child sponsors? How do you donate? The result, 10,000 conversions, pretty cool. 40% under their goal, also pretty cool. But this is what we found, some of the key factors. Time of day. What time of day was it better to serve ads than not? What interests did people who were donors have that they did not? What geographies? What was the top geography for searching that? And then also, what was their household income? So it's not just about what you can do online. It's also about how this information can be applied offline. So think about any other traditional planning model where you don't necessarily have the ability to make real-time decisions, but you have to make smart decisions and make decisions rapidly about how do you spend your dollars. Well, what if you could flip it on its head? What if you could say, okay, how do I use digital to help inform what I do outdoor? How do I use digital to help inform what I want to do for print? And so what we also do is, this is an example of just very quickly a top customer report. And so when we think about brands, we're thinking about not how to arm them with spreadsheets, but how to arm them with wisdom to help them create better stories. And in doing this, we believe that we liberate marketers and agencies to do the most inspiring and insightful work of their careers. I want to show you one quick video of an agency that we've been working with for a long time, MMGY Global, based in North America, and how they work with a system like this.
MMGY is a full-service integrated travel advertising agency. We focus exclusively in the travel and hospitality space. We work with hotels, we work with destinations, we work with states. We do a little work with casinos, anything that kind of falls into the entertainment travel sector. So we're pretty unique in that way because no one else really does what we do. Choice Hotels has really been a huge success story, not only for us, but I know also for Rocket Fuel. We see results anywhere from 2,000% return on ad spend, or a 20 to 1. We've seen it upwards of 5,000%, or a 50 to 1 return that we started to see when we were running Facebook Exchange. The results were so astronomical and outstanding that we put them onto another region. Within 6 months, regions were asking for Rocket Fuel by name, which I'd never seen before. They talked to each other and they were seeing the results on the other regions and they wanted to see the same results. Rocket Fuel creates a situation in which our planners can really rely on the expertise that they bring to the table to power the digital media that we're putting in marketplace and ensure that it's reaching the right targets. And then we've got the freedom to be able to expand what we're doing. It's really kind of freed up our ability to test other opportunities, move into new spaces. It's given us the flexibility to test things such as tablet and social. Rocket Fuel has really positioned themselves as the premier programmatic partner in the space. We know when we have a line item that says Rocket Fuel, that's going to be the workhorse of the campaign. It's going to drive the lion's share of results and revenue.
So pretty cool. That's how reducing big data's complexity actually empowers agencies to make smarter decisions, to make better decisions, and to help their customers ultimately succeed. That was for Choice Hotels. By the way, everybody in this presentation, everybody that you see here, these are unpaid endorsements. Not a single customer that we have in anything that you'll see in this presentation today. We're given any sort of financial contribution for their time. Question number 2, what big data works best? We get this question all the time. Oh my God, I want segments. I got a lot of segments. I'm interested in segments. I say all of it. I say no segments. And there's a reason why I say this. So BMW, another great customer of ours. We presented this part of the presentation at JD Power not too long ago. What does BMW want to do? What does any car manufacturer want to do? Do they want to sell fewer cars? No, probably not. They want to drive efficiency through automation. This is their plant in South Carolina, in fact, where they've replaced some of the humans with a different workforce to enable them to create cars faster. And in the case of BMW, I am going to presume here that those of you who are in the media business here have bought some set of segments today. Show of hands, it's okay. Segments are cool. It's all right. Don't be shy. Oh, I saw a hand up there. Like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to say that now. Now that he said segments are bad. Well, look, we think it's a great acknowledgement that in-market intent data can work well for advertisers, but the next generation of smart data enables companies like BMW to achieve twice the possible reach with greater purchase affinity. So in the specific case that I'll show here, again, all of these stats, who are they verified by? They're not verified by us. They're verified by a third party. So we work with Correlate, which is the Nielsen of the auto industry, and they looked at two different data models. One data model said, hey, let me buy in-market luxury auto intender segment X and see what is their affinity to buy a luxury automobile when they're exposed to BMW advertising. And then they said, okay, well, let's look at Rocket Fuel's model of creating this bespoke data segment, i.e. applying all data to the problem. And what they found, that we can actually get twice the reach at the same purchase affinity. So people who were exposed to in-market BMW guys from a Blue Kai segment, they were 21 times more likely to be in market for a car. In our case, we reached twice the reach, and they were 23 times more likely to buy a BMW. Well, that's kind of cool. But then we also looked at frequency. And anybody who has ever worked on an auto campaign, you know that frequency counts. Frequency matters. You use a lot of radio, in fact, to drive frequency. So you have frequency of that message. And when we exposed our custom model audiences to 15 or more messages, purchase affinity, as you see there, 47 times more likely to purchase a BMW than they were without. But of course, so all of these is kind of existential. Well, it's more likely, affinity, what do you mean, what have you. So the cool thing about a company like Correlate is that they actually then match ad exposure to DMV records as well as insurance data to tell you actually did you sell more cars or not. And in fact, forgive the sound, I'm going to turn that sound a little bit back. Last year, what we discovered is that we determined that 40% of new purchases were influenced by Rocket Fuel BMW advertising. Amazing statistic. Actual cars purchased, not a proxy for cars, actual cars purchased. And we couldn't have done that without really the progressive auto marketer like BMW and their agency Universal McCann, who challenged us to prove that online advertising actually affects offline sales. Another question we're asked. Programmatic and branding. Maybe you've heard about branding and programmatic before. Can I have my peas and eat them too? Why do I talk about peas? I will describe why in just a second. Bird's eye. Who here has bird's eye in their freezer? Some people do. A handful of people do. So bird's eye, they tend to be, they're a United States CPG manufacturer, and they make frozen foods. Like, oh God, frozen foods, how boring is this presentation going to get? You have these amazing robots dancing and whatnot. What are you talking about frozen food? Well, I will tell you. So the only person on earth who juggles more than moms are the consumer packaged goods companies who make food for their families. And then for Pinnacle Foods' Bird's Eye Voila brand, they wanted to drive awareness and trial. Who doesn't want to drive awareness and trial? Everybody does. They also want to drive coupon downloads at the best possible price, reduce consideration of competing products, and of course, don't forget, make sure you continue to build on the brand's reputation. Now, I don't know if anybody knows who this is. Anybody know? It's okay if you don't. It's really obscure, really obscure. You have to be in the refrigeration and freezing industry to know who this guy is. This is Clarence Birdseye. So the name Birdseye is actually from a gentleman named Clarence Birdseye. And for those of you in Canada, I want to present you with a statistic from 1912 to 1915. He was in Labrador in the Dominion of Newfoundland, which of course is now part of Canada, where he became really interested in food preservation by freezing, and especially fast freezing. So all of the freezers that you see in grocery stores, the modern refrigeration, Clarence Birdseye was the progenitor. He was the guy who figured it out. And what he in fact found, he was taught by the Inuit how to fish and fish under the very thick ice. And then at negative 40 degrees centigrade weather, he discovered that fish that he caught froze almost immediately, but when he could thaw them, they tasted just as fresh. So that is Clarence Birdseye, has had an impact on all of our lives, not particularly during the winter right now, but in the summertime, you can thank Clarence Birdseye for his research in Canada to enable us to have frozen food. So then ultimately, what do they want to do? They want to drive offline sales. Again, forgetting about, let's think about, not think about proxy metrics, let's think about actual sales-driven metrics. So what do they do with us? What do they do with Rocket Fuel to make this happen? Well, they came to us and said, well, we know something about our customers. We know something about our loyalists, and we know something about how people buy our products, because we've done some market research before. Could we take this market research and apply it to this digital ecosystem, this vast inventory set of data that you have, et cetera, et cetera? And we said, sure, we can do that. And this is how we do it. This is how man and machine work together. So they said, hey, if you could tell us how often do you prepare frozen dinners for your family in a given month, and then purchase intent, which of the following products do you plan to purchase in the next 30 days? When people said, okay, you know what, I want to do it more than once a week, or all right, I do it once a week, and I actually plan to purchase Bird's Eye versus a competitor, we took those signals, and then those signals became part of our model. So we augmented the model. We enhanced the learning model that we use to make decisions about advertising. And those are used, those survey responses are immediately influenced in real-time bidding for ads. Kind of cool. And in the process of doing that, we increased brand purchase consideration 18%. All the numbers I'm about to show you now are verified by Nielsen. So again, this is not me telling you, this is Nielsen, well, me telling you on behalf of Nielsen. We also, if the slide will work, coupon downloads, 70% more efficient CPC. So when we had that segmentation that you saw before in the questions, for some of them we said, okay, you know what, we want to give these people, we want to give some cohort a coupon for those who respond in a certain way. For those who don't respond another way, we want to perhaps upsell them, let them know about a new product. And so the ability to actually say, okay, who is actually more interested in a coupon for a very specific brand? 70% more efficient CPC. That's cool, but then what about that? Okay, incremental ROI. So every dollar that Bird's Eye spent with us, they got $3 back in return. $3 back in return, and that created short-term sales impact of over $1 million. So when you have man and machine, there's a lot of talk, of course, you've probably heard it. It's not man versus machine, oh my God, you need to have humans involved. This is how we have real consumers, real people influencing advertising decisions that are to their benefit, to the benefit of the brand, to create value. Last one. So I've talked a lot about media, I've talked a lot about decisions, AI. I started a little bit talking about creative, and I want to come back to it. So what about the other half, creative? So what I'm going to show you now, this is brand new research, and we prepared it for today. First time anybody's ever seeing it. And what we did, this is for the automotive category. It's a big category, a lot of money spent in automotive. Of course, you want to hedge your bets, so you want to spend money in a place that makes sense, or you want to spend your research money in a place that makes sense. So we looked at 7,500 unique creatives that were run with Rocket Fuel in Q4 of this year. And then to gauge creative performance, we looked at a sample of 1.74 billion impressions. 1.74 billion impressions served, all automotive. Anybody who had an automotive ad, we work with lots of automotive companies, we looked at them, and we analyzed them, and we cross-referenced them. It was a mechanical Turk on steroids for us to be able to do this internally to get the classification of it. What did we do? We looked at size, background color, we looked at call to action, display of pricing information, all of the attributes that you might consider. Okay, am I creative? What am I going to do? What kind of ad am I going to actually create to deliver great creative? And here's what we found. You have to concentrate on the car. So I put in a CTR metric here because yes, oh my God, everybody said it for the last 15 years. CTR is the bane of our existence, but everybody still does it. People in this room, we get RFPs all the time. Let's look at our success metric CTR. Really? Like, okay, that's fine. But let's look at other more important metrics. In this case, we have the ability to look at CTR, and we also have the ability to look at conversions. And what you'll see here, well, hey, guess what? If you want to drive your CTR, go nuts. Show a human and no vehicle. But if you want to drive conversions, you want to have a human and a vehicle. If you have neither, it doesn't do you really much good. If you have a vehicle, no human, that also doesn't do you much good. So that's one thing we learned. Another thing we learned, talking price, not offers. So as with pricing and no promotional offers, perform the best of any ad type. And again, let's look at this. So CVR is conversion rate index versus CTR index. And what you find, hopefully this is a surprising and shocking, and maybe we'll get some people to think maybe differently about how they might measure success of an advertising campaign, is look, there's not a lot of correlation between CTR and conversion. So hey, guess what? If your goal is CTR and you have a client, and if those of you here that work on an agency, if you have an actual client that says, oh my God, please get me some of those clicks, quick clicks, then go nuts. Please use this information to do that. But if you really want to drive value, for that auto marketer, we suggest that you look at different ways to think about how you develop creative for that. Next, We also looked at customization. What did people say in their ads? And we found that building your own, if you build it, they will come. It is in fact true. Thank you, Kevin Costner, and his resurgence into this sort of afterlife of movies now. What we find, build your vehicle viewing details, build your own, far outperformed on a conversion rate. So now, and I'm just going to get rid of the CTR stuff. I'm going to talk about conversions. Far outperformed ads that said something like, shop now. Didn't work so well. Black vehicles are trendy. Again, looking at conversion index versus CTR index. Black and pick a color, when you have that kind of insight, when you're able to create those ads that say, okay, here's a black car, it's kind of fancy, or pick a color, they perform dramatically, as you see, dramatically greater than anybody else. But wait, there's more. Stick with black and white backgrounds as well. Background color, as you see, didn't have as much of an impact. So these are index values, right? So 100 is your baseline, and if you have 119, okay, actually still 20% better, 20% better than nothing. Again, if you want, click CTR, throw great cars up there. You'll get great CTR, and you'll have horrible conversion rates. So 5 steps to building a better creative. Now, I'm not going to profess to be an automotive creative specialist. Creative was not my background. Yes, I was a classically trained concert pianist, but it was sound, it wasn't visual. So I put together this little ad just to show you what are the 5 steps to building better automotive creative. Pricing is more important. Stick with black and white backgrounds. It's about the car, not people. Talk about reliability and proven success. And if you build it, if you let them build it, they will come. So, the summary here. Advertising that learns liberates. Please rethink about segments. Programmatic branding works. And creative insights are in sight. When you sit on this math infrastructure, you can actually apply some learning and apply learning to not just the media part of the equation, but also the creative part of the equation. So, some closing thoughts. Human beings are great at storytelling. They're great at narrative. They're great at strategy. They're great at creative. Certainly a lot better than I was in that one creative example of how to build an ad. And so we free up these visionary agencies and their marketers from the grunt work and grunge work associated with manual planning and optimization and liberate them to do these really powerful and insightful work, most powerful and insightful work of their careers. And artificial intelligence, the science that powers what we call advertising that learns, gets better every day. IBM Watson leverages natural language capabilities, hypothesis generation, and evidence-based learning to help doctors diagnose patients. Amazon's Kiva system uses AI to coordinate hundreds of mobile robots per warehouse. And those of you who heard about the autonomous drones, yes, the drones are coming, and they're going to be powered by AI, and they're going to deliver your packages in 30 minutes or less. Machines are teaching themselves how to drive, fly, diagnose, and pick and pack better every single millisecond. And robots, look, they're all around us, but that's okay because, look, there's a culture of AI here. I've had the great fortune to work with about 30 PhDs. Our CEO is a PhD in AI from Stanford, hence the Stanford plug before. Shameless plug for Stanford. And he was one of Sergey and Larry's classmates. And so they think in a different way. You see a cook making a pizza, and a normal person says, pizza. The AI scientist says, you know what, there ought to be a robot for that. There ought to be a way that we can optimize some of those decisions and some of those outcomes. And so, same gentleman we saw earlier on in that 60-minute segment. His name is Andrew. And Andrew McAfee, he just came out with a new book. It's one of my book recommendations at the end of this presentation with Eric Brynjolfsson. They're both at MIT, super sharp guys. And this is what he said. I encourage you, if you do nothing else from this presentation, I hope you will work with my friends and colleagues at Rockefeller. But if you don't, please go read this article that he wrote in HBR in December. Because he's been thinking about this problem way longer than I have. He wrote a book called Race Against the Machine with Eric Brynjolfsson a few years ago that talked about the coming machine age. And now he's written a book called The Second Machine Age. And what he said is this. The practical conclusion is that we should turn many of our decisions, predictions, diagnoses, and judgments, both the trivial and the consequential, over to the algorithms. There's just no controversy anymore about whether doing so will give us better results. It's a really great piece in HBR because, again, domain knowledge, domain expertise, someone who has been studying this category of machine-based intelligence for a long time, this is what they're proving out scientifically. It's not through judgment, it's proven through science. So what is our mission? Well, I think our mission at Rockefeller is pretty simple. And that is, we want to fuel the heroic success of our customers with big data and artificial intelligence, plain and simple. And when we do that, we liberate agencies and marketers to do the most inspiring and insightful work of their careers. Everybody in this room gets to focus on strategy, storytelling, servicing your customers, and not spreadsheets. And so I want to close with a video from one of our customers, iProspect, and their experience of working with Rocket Fuel across multiple brands and agencies. It's pretty cool.
iProspect is a digital marketing agency. We focus on performance media. We have a lot of retail clients, a lot of travel clients, and we're a global agency, so we work everywhere. Retail has evolved so much over the last couple of years. It's important for us to find really strong partners that we can grow with.
For a lot of retail clients in the digital space, a lot of the emphasis in the past couple of years has been on big data. We've got all this data, everything we've collected over our consumers, but we don't know how to apply it to our campaigns and to our marketing strategies. So one of the things we're doing with Rocket Fuel is accessing a lot of that first-party data and leveraging it to a lot of our digital campaigns to find new customers.
We have access to this amazing dashboard that we can really see who our consumer is and who's coming to the site and how they're interacting, and then conversely who's not coming and who's not converting. So with that information, we're able to craft really targeted, really specific campaigns based on all of that data.
And they're making your campaign a lot more efficient by driving users who are qualified and are actually going to perform the actions that you want.
When we look at ROI, or return on ad spend, specifically with Rocket Fuel, the numbers are absolutely incredible.
Our overall goal is a 5-to-1. We see anywhere from a 5-to-1 upwards of 10-to-1.
Our Rocket Fuel performance far outweighs the performance of all our other partners. We've seen such amazing performance that our client is willing to try anything and everything as long as it's with Rocket Fuel. We're running with them in 9 different countries and a lot of different programs.
Rocket Fuel does a great job of being innovative and creative with the approach they take to your campaign. They understand your brand and the concerns that you're bringing to the table, and they ultimately help you to find solutions to those challenges.
Having the technology that they have and being able to bring that to us gives us the confidence that we can share to our client.
We know that not only will they give us a great solution, but they'll be able to do it quickly, and it'll be smart, and it'll be really thought out. They're amazing. We'd be lost without them for sure.
So hopefully what you heard in that segment is that, what are they doing? So they're taking data that they apply to craft new campaigns that they weren't able to craft before because they learned something about their customers on behalf of their clients that they were able to do before. The ability to develop strategy, the ability to innovate, the ability to test new channels. That is the exciting promise and future of AI. Again, I talked about it before, I'll say it again. Think about power, freedom, and opportunity. I'd like you to think about what it would mean if agencies and marketers could reset what's possible with artificial intelligence on your side. So with that, we almost have it. With that, I say merci. I also have a book list, further suggested reading, for anybody who's interested. These are a handful of books. The Second Machine Age, written by our friend Eric Brynjolfsson and Eric McAfee. Good friend of mine, Ken Kukier, wrote Big Data Revolution last year, one of the top business books of the year. Encourage you to read that as well. Nate Silver made a lot of noise, of course, in predicting elections in the United States. Now thinking about going on to sports, great book is there as well. And then Chris Steiner, yes, another friend in the business. Chris wrote this book called Automate This: How Algorithms Came to Rule Our World. And what's cool about that book is that it gives you some very real-world practical examples. I've given you some examples of how AI works across different categories, but he has many other examples within that. How AI is affecting music, how AI is affecting call centers. So it's a good primer on the coming age of autonomous computing. So I will say thank you, and if there are any questions, please ask away, or I will give you back 10 minutes of your time and you can leave early. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? You're all stupefied, you're all checking your email, you're all taking pictures of the books. It's okay not to have questions. If you're feeling, you're like, oh, I'm a little shy, I don't want to ask questions in front of a large audience, I want to do it afterwards on a one-on-one basis. That's cool. All right, then we'll wrap up. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Great job. Eric Porras, thank you very much.